Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Taiwan Season 2020 Online Symposium Connecting with Taiwan. My name is Donald Hutera, and I'm speaking to you from London. And I'm very pleased to know that we have more than 100 people joining us today. So the way Taiwan Season Online Symposium works is that on Tuesdays, every Tuesday in August, I'll be having an informal conversation with one of the 4 choreographers whose work was meant to be seen in Edinburgh at the Fringe this August. There's also some video highlights, and it's about, as I said, 45 minutes. We did one yesterday, and it's available to see from tomorrow online and available after that. And then every Wednesday and Friday, there is a themed 2-part webinar lasting approximately 2 hours. It may be less, don't worry about that, with experts in artistic practice, production, presentation, and programming. For those webinars, as you who are here now know, you need to register in advance. And the point is to have informative fun and to enjoy ourselves and to connect with Taiwan. So today's keynote speaker is Huey-mei Leigh. She is an independent curator and producer who was the artistic director of the National Theatre and Concert Hall. She's also been involved for decades in venue management, programming, education, marketing, festival curation, and she's a leader in dance, contemporary dance and theater production in Taiwan and making global connections. So I'd like to invite her to this virtual stage, please.
Hello, this is Huey-mei Leigh from Taipei, Taiwan, and it's my pleasure to be here and to share this section.
Now, we have 2 guests today that you will introduce later, but first, you're going to provide the keynote speech for today's theme, which is the present and future of Taiwan arts and culture centers, trends in international cooperation. And the reason you chose this topic about trends in international cooperation is because you are interested in forging links between Taiwanese artists and people around the world.
Yes. Okay, because I think it's not very usual for us to run a theater and also program by the theater people. Usually the theater runner, they just do the administration. So I think my experience is very unusual in Taiwan, I must say that. So today I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you about what happened in Taiwan, the art centers, and especially the public venues. So
well, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the first one. Since I want to introduce the art center and culture center in Taiwan, I think the background of Taiwan, I will take the opportunity to tell you about the background. Taiwan officially we called Republic of China. Okay, let's go to the first page first. Okay, so the geography is in the East Asia. So the neighboring country to the northeast is China, and to the northwest is Japan. Then the Philippines is to the south, and Taipei is the capital and the largest cities. And other major cities include New Taipei, Taoyuan, Taichung, Tainan, and Kaohsiung. Most of the inhabitants are immigrants from mainland China. They immigrants from 400 years ago. And now there are also a number of indigenous people living in this island. So the culture of Taiwan has been influenced by China mostly and affected by Japan due to the Japanese colony since 1885 to 1945. In the past 2 decades, many new immigrants from South Asia and China increased and make our culture diverse. At present, in addition to the national venues belong to National Performing Arts Center, there are over 40 public cultural and art centers in 5 major metropolitan cities and 40 counties under the central or regional governments. Only very few art centers or theater are managed by private sectors in Taiwan. Following, I would like to focus on the public venues and start from the National Performing Arts Center. You can see the National Performing Arts Center inaugurated in 2014 under the structure of 3 venues operating under one entity, namely the National Theatre and Concert Hall, National Taichung Theatre, and National Kaohsiung Cultural Center for Arts, Wei-Wu-Ying. They located in Taipei, Taichung, and Kaohsiung, respectively. Under the common mission, the national venues aimed at developing multiple productions, providing professional services and education, and guiding the development of regional arts. Among them, I'm going to introduce you the National Theatre and Concert Hall first. National Theatre and Concert Hall opened in 1987. It's not the earliest theater in Taiwan, but the first public venue to provide and produce her own programs. In the past, in accordance with the mission of different stages, reasonable, fair, and diverse content creates opportunities for the public to get close to performing arts and produce the innovative and challenging program to stimulate the local community to integrate internationally. Her missions are similar to the national venues around the world. So following, I'd like to introduce you Taiwan International Festival of Arts. Okay, I go too quick. How can I go back? Oh, sorry. Okay, Taiwan International Festival Art, I engaged in many years for planning and presenting them. I must say TIFA is young, but it not only brings in international artists to local audience and artists, but also introduce Taiwanese artists and audience to the world. Because our audience always impress the visiting artists deeply by their amazing concentration and passionate reflections. Obviously, TIFA is not the only platform to develop our international networking, but it is the major one, crossover and international engagement, made it become a significant arts festival in Asia. New creation by co-commission and co-production with international theaters or festivals are its featuring projects every year, such as La Damned Moon Camellia by Tadashi Suzuki from Japan City Company and King Lear by Olivier P. from Avion Festival, and so on. Usually, my strategy is presenting the artist's work, before working on commission or co-production that help our audience know more about the artists. In 2016, after the establishment of NTT and in 2018 opening of Wei-Wu-Ying, they programmed in their own way to join TIFA. Thus, TIFA has become enlarged and reached to different areas in Taiwan. The national venues bring up a new competition, but also stimulate the local venues. No doubt with her resources, the three national venues how to help the local venues to build up their international networking, and local venues how to create their own characters will be an interesting observation for me. Now I'd like to take a quick look at the local public arts venues. Compared with the national ones, the local arts centers are short of manpower and budget in the past. They used to play the role as theater keepers, almost no programming and production of them at all. But arts festivals are held by the local Bureau of Culture in many cities all year round. There is less participation of art centers except performances presented there. In 2011, a competitive fund from the Ministry of Culture for the project of activating local culture centers operated. The subsidy helps the local centers change their roles and motivates them starting to work with the artists to develop community engagement and to tender their programming to a local private company, or they invite an artistic director to organize festival to meet the need of communities. It was a good kick-off. Some of them have developed their own international networking. I'm quite sure and surprised that at such a short time, they can make such quick change. So you can find here, that's what's happening in Taiwan. New and fresh experience in developing residence and co-production, inclusive arts and community engagement. So I'm looking forward to more international links of our local art center especially. It's the trend to open and share. No one can escape from the international cooperation. But in the face of the impact of COVID-19, how do venues and artists look at the limitation of border control if the international cooperation model is challenged? That's why we have Austin from the Taipei Performing Arts Center and Verity from the Summerhall, Edinburgh, to talk about the international connection next. The Taipei Performing Arts Center and Summerhall will bring out the possibility and model of future international cooperation in this discussion, especially the Taipei Performing Arts Center, which is still operating with great strength in the delayed construction of theaters, accepting challenge from all sides, and has achieved projects in international connection and talent development. So we look forward to the exchange of dialogue and the collision of the two. So let's welcome them later. Thank you.
Huey-mei, thank you for doing that. I'm curious, before we bring your first guest on, I saw the picture of the open air performance.
Yes.
And I have also watched online, I think in that same location, Cloudgate Dance Theater's retrospective recently. And
Yes.
I was so pleased and staggered by the number of people who attended that outdoor performance. So my question is about audience attendance for events and how common it is for, in quotes, ordinary people in Taiwan to attend performances. Is there a great hunger to see arts and culture? I assume the answer is yes, but I would like to hear from you, please.
Okay, because it's started from maybe 20 years ago, because our government quite encourage people to get engaged with the performing arts. So that's why they built the National Theatre and Concert Hall in 19 and opened it in 1987. So our mission is to get the people close to the theater, but it's hard. So we use the open air to attract them to participate in the events. So every year we have one or two outdoor events, and we have a free concert, and we have a lot of dance projects. But Cloudgate just really did a very success for us to make a big attraction for the audience to participate in the outdoor event. So I think it's 10 years ago we start to work with Cloudgate, and we got a sponsor from the private sectors and keep on going for over 10 years now.
And do you know, out of those 40 cultural centers around the country, is audience attendance pretty healthy?
Well, that's a big question. In the beginning, we open the door to welcome the audience, okay, and expecting they will come in to the theater. But actually, the answer is not just like you just meeting your expectation. Actually, most of the people, they will just come for the outdoor event only. So it's become a very important event for the people to bring their families to have a picnic on our plaza to share the evening in summertime. But actually, just very few of them become our audience and get into the theater.
So perhaps, like almost anywhere, you need to get the word out, use marketing, influencing, anything you can to draw audiences to see indoor performance as well as outdoor.
But however, the theater, I think it's very usual. You have to do something to make the attraction. The first thing is they have to close to the theater, and afterwards maybe you can open their heart and develop the interest to know more about performing arts.
And I also was curious about how frequent international co-commissions are in Taiwan. Does much of that happen?
Just for my case, in my case, in National Theatre, I used to have at least 3 to 4 co-production and or commission with the international artists, not too many compared with the whole year-round programs. We have over 60 productions every year, but only 3 or 4 we can afford to, and to not only manpower, also the budget to support us to do that.
Sure. And I just want to remind listeners that at any point, I forgot to do this before, you can post any questions or comments in whatever chat box you have available on StreamYard, etc. And at the very end of this session, after the 2 speakers are finished, you'll have an opportunity to ask more questions. And even if you're brave enough, come and join us on this funny little virtual flat screen and ask your question live. But Huey-mei, I now leave it to you to introduce your first guest.
Okay. Now let's welcome Verity, the program manager of Summerhall at Edinburgh. She has very experience in programming for the whole important Edinburgh Fringe. So I think her experience can share with us is the most important is how the especially how they use their just for us it's a very short presentation time, but they can make a living for the theater for the whole year. That's very attractive. Also, the resident project is very attractive. So I think her experience can share with us. So let's welcome Verity.
Hello, hi
Hello.
everyone. It's nice to see you. So we have a little video to show about Summerhall, and then I'm just going to do a little kind of presentation where I'll show you some pictures and kind of talk to you a bit about what we do.
楼上楼。
So that was just a video to give you a kind of flavour, I guess, of it was filmed for last year's Fringe, so hopefully it gives you an idea of what we would normally be doing round about now. I also have, I'm just going to talk over a PowerPoint with some photographs of the building and the
We may be having a slight technical glitch from Verity's side, which will get sorted. Let me please indulge me and say that seeing that short trailer about Summerhall floods me with love of that venue. It's absolutely one of my favorite venues in Edinburgh and the Fringe, and it's an adventure every time you walk through the door there. So I have to give a plug to Summerhall. But in the meantime, we have Verity frozen on that screen, but she's probably logged out and they'll log back in.
I'm back now. Sorry. I'm having some trouble with my internet. Is it possible to show the PowerPoint while I speak? Perfect, thank you. So yeah, I was telling you about Summerhall. So that's the building there. It used to be the veterinary school of the University of Edinburgh. So we don't have any purpose-built theatres, but we do have lots of interesting spaces. In normal times, Summerhall is open all year, and we have a mixed economy. So the earned income from events and lettings and from food and drink sales enables us to run our arts programmes. And throughout the year, Summerhall is a kind of place for lots of different kinds of events, parties, workshops, festivals, weddings and meetings. Our residents are, those are the people that rent studio or office space from us, and they're a kind of really interesting mix of creative artists, kind of small startup businesses, arts organisations, charities and social enterprises. And there's also a pub, a cafe, a brewery and a distillery, all your major food groups. The building is privately owned by a philanthropist and art lover. We don't have any regular funding from the City of Edinburgh or from Creative Scotland. We do apply to Creative Scotland for specific projects, and they've supported our artist development work over the last few years. Our visual art programme and our music programme runs year round, and so does our theatre programme, but most of it does happen during the Fringe. Outside of the Fringe, we kind of focus on the artist development work and sort of supporting artists to use the building to make work. So today should have been the first preview day for our Fringe programme this year. So it's 5 a Wednesday. It's about 1:30, so we'd probably have had about 20 shows by now would have done their first performance. And obviously the Fringe, our festival takes place as part of the Edinburgh Festival Fringe in August every year. So Summerhall first opened with the 2011 Fringe Festival, and 2020 would have been our 10th festival programme. So the Fringe, as you will know, is an open access festival, but the Summerhall programme is not. We choose our programme very carefully. We're looking for work which has something to say about the world and is saying it in an interesting way. So content and an interest in pushing the boundaries of form are both important to us. And our programme includes theatre, dance, live art, installation, and music and visual arts, which are programmed by my colleagues. So I guess we've kind of built a reputation for performance work that's surprising and engaging. Artists who've performed at Summerhall have won a lot of awards, and Summerhall's become one of the places where people who are coming for the Fringe kind of begin when they're trying to plan what to do with their visit to the Fringe. And we also find that our audiences are willing to take a risk on something that's in our programme because they kind of trust that it will be of quality. They know that maybe they don't like it, but they know that it has a certain standard. And as you know, international work is really important for the Summerhall programme. So obviously we work regularly with the Taiwan season and also with international partners. So like Aurora Nova or Big in Belgium, Canada Hub, La Manufacture in Avignon. In last year, in 2019, we had shows from 14 countries. Sometimes that's been more like 18, 19, 20. The Fringe as a whole in 2019 had shows from 63 countries. As you know as well, the Fringe is a big marketplace for promoters to see and to book work, or it used to be. And the Fringe Society has moved some of that work online this year. I think international touring and international promotion was already becoming quite problematic because of the climate emergency, and the COVID-19 crisis obviously hasn't helped. It's really great that the Taiwan season is doing all of this work online this year, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the various online platforms kind of work out, and perhaps in the future there's going to be more of a hybrid of online and live work. Looking back on the last 10 years, there's loads we could have done better and lots we would change, but I think we've supported artists, we've worked hard to be more accessible, more diverse and more sustainable, and we've really realised kind of recently that Summerhall's become sort of valued part of the local community and of the city of Edinburgh. Because we're in Edinburgh all year, we kind of operate maybe slightly differently, and we have noticed that many Edinburgh residents find some elements of the Fringe model problematic, and some artists do as well. So we've tried really hard to make a fringe venue which is respectful of its local community and of its visiting artists and of its staff. Because of the current crisis, we've been running a crowdfunder to help us to survive. And one of the first comments that came through, which other people have kind of echoed since, was someone said, "I could not imagine life in Edinburgh without Summerhall," which is a really nice thing to hear. I think since we've been doing the Fringe, every year we kind of make incremental improvements. This year would have been a great opportunity to think about bigger changes because we have a year off, but equally we're in a very bad kind of financial and capacity and energy position right now. So I think it's very hard to think creatively and excitingly about what the future might look like. I mean, I would say that we've always presented work which doesn't fit neatly into the kind of classic 1 hour Fringe slot, and maybe some of that kind of work can exist in a sort of socially distanced way. I think that expectation of the 1 hour Fringe slot was maybe restricting the kinds of work which could come to the Fringe. So maybe now there's an opportunity and a need to present more work which doesn't fit into that parameter, but the economics of doing that haven't got any easier. So I guess as things stand right now, it's still a really tricky situation. We don't know when we can start to host events again. We don't know when and if people are going to be able to squeeze into very, very small rooms together. So we don't know what our kind of living with COVID-19 future looks like. But we have had really amazing support from our local community and from the community of artists and audiences who kind of coalesce around Summerhall during the Fringe, and we want to obviously keep going to justify their faith in us, and we want to keep making the kind of connections with international partners that we've been able to do so far and to continue that work. So I think that's me, although you could sit and watch the rest of the PowerPoint.
Well, Verity, thank you for that. You know, seeing the courtyard alone of Summerhall just, you know, makes me very emotional because I do love that venue, and you know, I don't need to tell you this, but it is one of the most, if not the most innovative venue in Edinburgh for me. And thank you too. You know, nobody's asked me to say this, but thank you for your support, continuing support of Taiwan season every year. It's deeply appreciated. Now, what you've been talking about, there are several areas that, you know, a lot of rich material to dig into as the comments have been coming in. So I guess one strand to talk about is the longer term impact of COVID-19 on the art scene, both in Edinburgh, in Taiwan, internationally. Any thoughts or comments right now about that longer term impact, which I know also addresses things like indoor, outdoor performance, and also deals a lot with economy, free performance, paid performance, et cetera, but perhaps the best thing would be just if either of you have some thoughts about the impact of COVID-19.
I mean, I think it's a really big question. I think it's, you know, it has been and it will continue to have a massive impact. I think, yeah, there are kinds of work that can exist more easily in a socially distanced world, but generally they aren't the kinds of work for which you can sell a lot of tickets, and so the economics of it are really difficult. Outdoor performance in Scotland is a little bit challenging because of the weather, and I think, you know, international connections are kind of feel sort of riskier as well. So I think, you know, initiatives like this where we can kind of connect online are probably going to become more important.
Well, you did say about squeezing into venue spaces, but and this isn't really a question, but people are squeezing into airplanes, you know, and that's a common thing that I've heard. You know, if people can be in airplanes, why can't they be in theaters? But I know each venue, this is a slow adjustment process about how to move forward and stay viable financially, and simply to exist and continue to create and present work. Huey-mei, do you have any 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 issues you might want to bring about the COVID issue? And then we've got another question waiting for you. But first, if you could address COVID.
Okay. For me, I think I have a question for Verity, because it's a 10th anniversary for Summerhall, right? But for the disturbing of the COVID-19, and how do you plan, or you have any substitute plan to welcome to us to celebrate your anniversary?
To be honest, I think we'll just try and do it next year. So we have a program called Summerhall Adapt, where we're just kind of sharing work that artists who've kind of presented work at Summerhall before have kind of put into digital spaces. But in terms of what's possible for us to do this year, there's like literally three people are working for Summerhall now instead of 65. So, the capacity to really properly celebrate is just not there. So yeah, we just have everything crossed for 2021.
And Huey-mei, I have a question for you, because I've been told that theaters, venues in Taiwan, am I right, have not had to close at all?
We do. We close our theater for stuff from February to June, right?
To first of 7th of June, yes.
Yes.
But everything's back to normal, which is fairly lucky, because we don't need to keep the social distance, as you can see.
We should. Distance. No choice, because the table is too small.
And is that coming back to normal? Is that partly because the government and its citizens dealt very well with this crisis?
Indeed, yes. Yes, I think the public is very aware of this kind of situation, because like 10 years ago, we do have SARS happening in Taiwan. So we do have that kind of experience. So people really follow the SOP from according to the government. So that's why we are fairly pretty lucky compared with the other countries.
Okay. So I just wanted to thank Gary Platt for mentioning COVID-19 in the comments. We have another question from, could you, backstage folks, could you bring that question back? Let me just find his name. That's it, Benedict Yu. There I'll read it out loud. Does TIFA have any tactic or plan to build how the general audience will be able to step into supporting the art scene more and more proactively, so that the ecosystem will be self-sufficient? And perhaps, Huey-mei, you could, TIFA, it stands for what? Could you explain that, please?
TIFA is an initiative of the Taiwan International Festival of Arts. So they held every year in March to April. I used to do that within 4 weeks for the festival, but they have changed a little bit right now.
But
so
is there a way of increasing that support that the general audience might be?
Yes, every year. I think starting from from 2009, the first TIFA from now till now, I think our audience increased every year in 5%. So it's amazing.
Okay, thank you. By the way, Verity, there's been additional lashings of love in the comment box towards Summerhall.
I know, I saw. It's really nice.
Now, Huey-mei, I see that you have a man sitting next to you who
Yes.
has still not been properly introduced.
I think he talked a lot already. So let's welcome Austin from the Taipei Performing Arts Center. He's the artist director. So I think he did a very, very hard job because he doesn't have all his own venue because he's under construction, but he still do a lot of things without his own theater. So let's welcome Austin.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Austin Wang. I'm the director of Taipei Performing Arts Center, show for TPAC. The whole building started, whole construction started in 2012. And I was assigned as a director for TPAC in 2014. It seems like a lot of years ahead before. Hold on, what's wrong with that? Okay, and everyone knows me when I'm attending the international meeting or festival. They all know me as a man with a hat, as you can see now. So, so just look for me in the future when the COVID-19 is finished. So let's talk about let me introduce a little bit about the theater itself, because the theater is still under construction and should be finished hopefully by the first season of next year, 2021, and we are planning to have a grand opening in 2022. And the architect is designed by the Dutch architect Renkoehas. And the idea is to have 3 theaters, like a magic puzzle, to join in the center cube. So namely, we have the Grand Theaters, which is the maximum capacity is 1,500 seats, which is the same capacity as the national theaters, but with the better sideline, as you can see. And we have lots of stage machinery, computer fly, and that's the ground plan of it, with enough space on both end and the backstage. And next one is the 800 seat playhouse. This is, I think, probably one and only in the world to have auditorium shaped like a globe. And we have 3 levels of boxes behind the auditorium, and the stage is, we can turn the stage into a thrust stage. So I would say if Shakespeare is alive today, this would be his Globe Theater. Don't you agree? And the third one is, this is the ground plan up as still enough, lots of space behind the stage. Next. And the third one is, we so-called it black box. But then in this case, the whole theater is painted in dark blue. So we will call it blue box instead. If you sit on one end, it can accommodate about up to 500 seats. So it depends on the different configurations. So it can up to 800s. And then we still have another crazy ideas. The architect come up with a crazy idea is to link 2 theaters together, the Grand Theater and the blue box on both ends. So we can open it up. So the stage will start. The depth will be about from 60 to 80 meters in depth. So what kind of performance can do in there? The sky is the limit. This is the sectional view of it. As you can see, the Grand Theaters and the Blue Box, they can join together, we call it super theater. And the other section of view from the other side, as you can see, the playhouse is on the next level up. And because all the theaters is really up in the air, so we keep the maximum space for the public. So we even in the public square, we do have a small theater, which we can hide it underneath the ground. We can hold it up and do some small show like puppets. And then the architect also come up with the ideas he create an independent pathway. We call it public loop. It's a pathway that you can allow the audience can see the different aspect of the theaters without really interfering the normal operation of the theater. For instance, they have independent elevator getting up to the backstage of the Grand Theaters and the grid of the Blue Box, and then even our office can be part of the viewing program. This is how it looks right now. So it's still under construction. A bit mess, but from the outlook of it, looks pretty complete. So as you probably know, we are a theater without venue yet, but then we really secure our second home, which is our home right now. It used to be a swimming pool in 2016 when we took it over, and then we converted into a huge trial space, a big studio. The studio is the size is about 23 meters in width. The depth is about 38 meters, and with the 6.5 meters clearance. Next. And then there's another children pool, and then we convert it into a small studio. The size is about 13 by 14 meters, again, with 6.5 meters in clearance. So this is our home base, so we can really using these two spaces as for the developing of our different programs for now. In the future, the theater in TPAC, we do have 6 studios. So combined together, we're gonna have like 8 to 9 studios in total for helping the artist. And then also starting for 3 years ago, we are responsible for the 3 main festivals in Taipei, namely Taipei Art Festival, which is in our 22nd years now. And this year's, the theme is about super. It's about talking about the superhuman, supernatural. It's reflections about the ecosystem, the human versus naturals, human versus environments. And it happens to echo reflect the situation right now in COVID-19. Although we do lots of the international program has to be canceled, but we still manage to squeeze in 1 or 2 in this kind of situation. We actually to have a dance master from Thailand, Pichait, who is still under quarantine right now and should be released tomorrow, and then immediately he will join us into the setup for the program for next week. And then we invite some of the artists from internationally, and we're doing work through the Skype or any kind of methods. We have one program. We invite a choreographer from French, Johan Bell, who do a Skype meeting with our local art dancers, and they came up a very wonderful, beautiful dance program. And the second one will be the theaters, the festival. We do have a so-called festival within a festival. We create a called Thinking Bar. It's a mini series which contain a lot of workshops, work in progress kind of work that's still under development, and we put it into side by side with the Taipei Art Festival. And then Children Festival, this is our 21st years. And the theme for this year is called New Kids in Town, starting from ground zero. So we without the international artists, we work with our local artists. We try to work with them to create local children programs. And then the third one, namely, is the Taipei French Festival. This is really like very much in the same idea and pattern and operation like Edinburgh Fringe. We create a platform to invite to have no censorships. Anyone can join the festival. So it's a very healthy program for the young artists. For this year, we have 125 groups, and they were going to perform around Taipei in every possible locations. With about 584 performers in total within 2 weeks. And then besides, other than the 3 festivals, we also work on several platforms that can help us preparing the launch of TPAC. The first one is, we call it ADAM. ADAM is short for Asia Discover Asia meeting. We create a program, we invite the artists from around the Asia regions, all kinds of artists, not necessarily in the performing arts area. And then we invite them to have a residency in Taipei for almost 4 weeks. And then during these 4 weeks, they work with our local artists, so they can join as a joint ventures to create a future program. Not necessarily will happen in the TPAC, but it's a good start. And then in the last 4 days, we every year we held a conference. We invite the international curators to join the conference. This is our 4th year. But unfortunately, this year, because of the COVID-19, we could not invite the actual artists to Taiwan. But then we will launch the on-site the program through the internet. And then starting from last year, we work with the CND, French National Dance Institute, and then they have a program called Camping. And for the camping, they invite up to 14 to 22 different art schools around the world to have 2 weeks sections camping. So we copied that kind of format, and then we create a called Camping Asia. For this, we invite mostly the school from around the Asia, and some from Europe, and the other ones from California as well. And then we have a 2 weeks program in Taipei. That's that program, because we don't have the theater yet, so we work with the national theaters, but that matters. This we'll do it by every 2 years. So next year we're going to do the second Camping Asia. By then, hopefully, our theater will be finished before that. And we invite the artists from around the world to conduct workshops, performers, and so it's a lot of fun. Thank you. That's so much for that.
Okay, thank you, Austin. So, shall we have open to the floor to ask the questions, Donna?
Before we do that, could I just, I can't help it, I have to say, wow, Austin.
Yes.
Wow, first of all, for just seeing the designs, I'm still thinking about that, opening up the 2 spaces and what you would do there, but also all the programming that you have been doing, continue to do, and will be doing. And you have already addressed how COVID has, how you've worked with it, worked around it. For the future, knowing that the theater is, the complex is opening in 2022, how much is already potentially in place for that opening year?
To tell the truth, because the budget hasn't been approved, so officially I couldn't really go through the negotiation with the artists as we speak. But then we do have some programs in mind, and we do have lots of programs. We're going to do the co-production with the internationally, and then and also we have some program already been developing throughout the years. So by the time when it's open, I think we'll be very ready.
And is it common for you and for the Performing Arts Center to put call-outs internationally? Are you looking for people from other nations to come and work with you, show their work?
Yes, for sure. Yes, because we set up our mission as the co-producer center of Asia. So we like to be in that kind of position, and then work with the everyone internationally. So for instance, I enjoy a lot of program in Summerhall, and whenever I join the program there, I always say, gee whiz, I wish I could do that, to work with the program from the Summerhall.
Now, I see we have Po Chen asking, you can see down there at the screen, do 3 festivals all go into TPAC in the future? Will that be more diverse for people in Taiwan, or does it become more centralized? Could you address that question, please?
Well, the main idea of the festival, the programming is, we really like to diversify. Everything we create a program for different genders, different people, different ages, and which the ideas of our festival is pushing all the possible boundary. So we do have that kind of luxury doing in Taipei, because National Theater has been a national showcase in Taiwan, so they do have responsibility to really taking care of everything. And not far from our venues, a bit north, we do have a so-called traditional art center. So they are taking care of the traditional arts. So we can really focusing on the contemporary issues.
Well, I have a question about the national scene. How much cooperation is there between you or between the 40 art? How connected is the art scene within Taiwan?
Well, I would say it's only in the very beginning phases, because the National Theater, they are so dominant previously, before the other theater venue pops up. And since then, we are already discussing the possibility to work with. We already work with one productions with Taichung, which is they're going to present next year, and we're going to put it in our as a main program for our opening seasons. And then Kaohsiung, because it's a bit further south. So logistically is much easier to work with because audience tends not to travel that far away. So we do have a lot of possibility to work with the different venues. And then as a matter of fact, we create a platforms. In every year, in the end of years, we present, we're giving so-called a few incentive money for the different groups. And by the end of the year, they're going to present, each group will present like 15 minutes of program to show everyone they've been doing. And then this year, we're going to enlarge that profile, that platform. We invite Taichung, Kaohsiung, Taipei, even traditional art center. They all will join the venture. They're all going to present their programs, which is still under development. So everyone can see it. And then maybe we can come up with the co-productions or invite to be touring programs.
Now, if there's anybody who's listening who wants to join us on screen, please let us know, and you can come on board and ask your question directly, if you're brave enough to do that, and maybe be part of the dialogue. But in the meantime, I see that Bruno has asked a question. If you were to name one positive outcome from the COVID-19 situation on international collaboration between Taiwanese art scene and the rest of the world, what would that positive outcome be?
Well, I would say after COVID-19, everything has been changed drastically because touring used to be easy. It used to be like a one night stop or one weekend stop, and that's it. And for the future, I think the artists will have been asking to stay put, to stay in the country for a bit longer, to work with really work with the local artists, really knowing the local cultures, and then come up with the real production, which is, we call it co-productions. I think that is something we need to think about that for the futures.
Well, it's interesting to hear that, because here in Britain, there has been talk about how developing the local scene so that people don't have to travel so much, and how potentially rich that is. But what you just said is perhaps the notion of residencies being longer and more in depth, rather than the sort of fly in, fly out situation.
Exactly. Yes. And under we are under the umbrella of Taipei's Art Foundations. We do have a institution called Taipei's Art Village, which usually hosts the artists from around the world. And then we can use that kind of a facility to really invite the artists to really stay longer for creation of the future programs.
And obviously, Verity or Huey-mei, if you have anything you want to ask or say, please feel free to join in. Otherwise, I'll just keep barreling along. And
I'd like to go back to the first question you asked, Austin, about the connection in Taiwan with the national venues, how to work with the local venues. For the National Theatre, because you just, Austin mentioned, we have a lot of things to do, so a lot of tasks. You need to take care of everybody's need. But for us, I think in the past 10 years, the program on tour is a kind of sharing between the venues. Even most of the local companies' premiere just happened at the National Theatre or our experimental theatre. So after they complete the production, then they were on tour within Taiwan or even go abroad. So I think that's the kind of sharing. So, and after that, we will invite the local art center to the workshop or to the showcase, we try to invite them and to introduce a lot of local artists or even international artists to meet them. And they have a chance to know each other and to build up their creation in the future. Yes, that's my answer for you.
Verity, do you want to pitch in with anything?
Yeah, I think just to kind of agree with Austin, I guess, about the sort of like how international collaborations might develop from, going forward. I think we've had a lot of very kind of, quick touring and people kind of going to lots of places and not staying there for very long. And I think, yeah, as well as that kind of need to sort of invest in our local scenes, I think where it's really important that there is still international exchange and artists can still kind of connect with each other. But I think that's going to be kind of potentially over, a longer period of time, and maybe they go somewhere and work with a community and co-create something more than the model of like kind of, flogging one show around the world. But then the economics of that are also going to be interesting. And I think, funders are going to have to decide what they value, in terms of that level of international connections. I think a lot of the kind of conversation in the UK is about like exporting work, and maybe funders need to think about what else they want to invest in.
Export, import.
Yeah.
Now, Gary Platt has a question, but before I ask that, I have a question for the Taiwanese duo, Huey-mei and Austin. Is there an interest but not is there an interest, but is there the funding to invite artists to come to Taiwan? Does the ministry itself, does the government, are they interested in supporting that financially to allow it to happen?
I would say yes. Yes, we do have a lots of arts village, they're also sponsored by the government, and then they provide the facilities and workshops for the artists to create something locally. So that's why we launched the Adam program. So we do have the facility and funding.
Okay, great. And how do people find out about that? Is it simply by going to the website for the Taipei Performing Arts Center or the cultural division website for Taiwan?
For TPAC, yes, you can find all kinds of information through the websites of TPAC.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody wants to join us on screen. Any takers for that offer? If not, I'm going to direct myself to Gary Platt's question. The Taiwan season has become a key part of the Edinburgh Fringe. Do you think, and this could be a Verity question, do you think there could be other opportunities to run workshops and collaborations with performers in Europe that evolve from this?
That's very good suggestions, and I already can put that question to the Ministry of Cultures, because they have to increase the budget for that. Yes.
Yeah. And I think again, as we were saying before, if Taiwanese artists are coming to Edinburgh, then it makes sense for them also to go to other places in Europe if we're looking at more of a kind of slow touring model.
Yes, that's the main purpose of it. But then
yeah,
I mean, this may
and
sound
I think
quite.
So Summerhall, we just started we would have started this year a new alliance with La Manufacture in Avignon. And it's kind of really interesting to me how for many years we've had a relationship with Taiwan, but not with France, which is next door. And that's partly about the kind of language and partly about the kind of quite silo kind of way that the French and the UK performing arts work. But I think given that Avignon and Edinburgh are so similar, and that the festivals, when they're running, kind of happen at more or less the same time, then that kind of maybe becomes an opportunity for artists to be able to visit both of those festivals, as long as they have suitable work which isn't too language based, which obviously is normally the case for the work that's coming to us as part of the Taiwan season.
And could any of you tell me if I'm correct? Because I'm not a programmer or presenter. I don't run a venue. I'm just a freelance journalist devising, performance, et cetera, et cetera. So this is educational for me as well. Am I right in thinking that what the future may hold is we all need to pull together and have much greater cooperation and creative thinking together? I remember, simply as a journalist, that I would be quite surprised when and I love press people. I'm a big fan of people who do PR, but sometimes I would get information about a tour or about one venue that would be part of a tour, but the person who sent me that information would only be telling me about their venue. And it would be, for me as a journalist, much more valuable to know that there was a huge tour that I could then pitch to my editor. So if I take that experience that I had in the past and apply it to presenting, programming, running venues, am I right that the cooperation, it's essential that that kind of dialogue increases for the future?
I would say so, yes. I used to work with CloudGate for almost 10 years. Before I took this job, I was a set designer and lighting designer for different company, and I've been touring everywhere. So from the 90s up to now, touring is normal practice for all the company in the world. But then I think the trend is getting shifted. Even before the COVID-19 happens. So everybody's looking for the different way of engagement, different way of working together, and because it will through the deep engagement, it will create something you were unexpected, and it's normally very exciting. So I think even the audience they are really looking for that kind of co-productions.
Also, I used to work at the National Theatre and Concert Hall. Every year in Chifa, we will invite the international journalists to come to Taiwan and to pay a visit to our Chifa. Also to visit a lot of interview with artists. I think it's very important. We cannot just have a PR locally. We need more international journalists to share and release the news with us. So you can contact with the National Theatre for the next year. If no more disturbing by COVID-19, then you are welcome to Taiwan.
Thank you. Now I see that 1927, the theater company, has a question. What are your thoughts on the value, opportunities, and importance in a post-pandemic world for growing peer-to-peer exchange between grassroots practitioners and artists in Taiwan and internationally?
Maybe. Okay, I'll try to answer that. Even I don't work at the theater right now. But I think it's opened the other door for the artists and also for the audience. We need to experience our theater, no matter in the theater or out of the theater. And the first things, we have to work with the audience to change or revolving their thought or habit to go to theater. Also, the artists need to think broader. We not only to have a person contact to work together. Then maybe we can work on website and try to share more. But how? I think a lot of people working on that. but it's very important. We have to change from global world to the domestic world, and how to link between two different worlds. That's very important.
Verity, any thoughts? You're looking reflective.
Yeah, I think it becomes even more important that those kinds of exchanges are made, and I think it's kind of part of the conversation that we've been having about maybe there are fewer international visits, but those international visits that do take place have more kind of resonance and value and perhaps last longer. And also maybe there's a way that those opportunities can be opened up to people who maybe don't have like a, perfectly finished production that can tour around the world in the kind of way that I guess we've kind of grown used to. So, if those things are becoming difficult and expensive to do because of the kind of pandemic, then maybe there's space for more direct connections between artists to happen sort of outside of that like model of touring a show.
And as you can see, the future TPAC is really a theater for this century. It's very flexible and very challenging, both the artists and the audience. So it's really neat for the artists. They really need time to develop works according to the space we provided. So it's and also the community around us is really they are getting aware of what's happening in the theaters. So what they expect is something, the program they really can relate it to locally and international as well. So that's something we need to work with.
And just as a plug for Friday's session with Huey-mei, it is multi-community arts education and development, which perhaps more of this idea about interaction between community, Taiwanese artists, international artists, grassroots can be discussed. But let me say that we've had 3 posts from Bruno. I don't know if Bruno wants to join us on screen, but in case you don't, well, some of you may be seeing this already. Artists, companies staying longer also means less artists, companies touring, or is that not the correct assumption?
Staying longer means
We're talking about a hypothetical situation here. Of course.
Yeah, I think in the world scale, I think basically it's not much changing. There's lots of artists who will stay as longer for the creation of the work, but then at the same time, there's still a lot of companies touring around the world, I would say. So I don't think it's going to be changed that much.
So Bruno's concerned that it may mean less diversity for local audiences. Maybe it's not such a worry, at least for you, Austin, in your point of view?
No, not really. No, okay. I think.
I mean, there are all sorts of questions about economy that the economics of the arts that maybe have, and the economics of cats as well, that we haven't addressed here. But I mean, should we talk any more about money, funding, how that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Based on the financial concern, touring can cost down a lot because you have other partner to share especially for the international projects, because someone will share the touring airfare and a lot of things with you. So for economic reason, we do appreciate to find a partner to share the burden. But just like Bruno mentioned, it's very weird. We encourage artists to do new creation, but we also just push it on tour to save money. So it's very, very interesting for me to think about that. I never thought it will become so chaos.
And I also think that in any way, regardless of COVID situation, that the kind of, certainly within Europe, the kind of EasyJet model of international touring is not really, it's getting to the point where that's very, very hard to justify in the context of a climate emergency. So I think that finding more sustainable models, whether that's more sustainable ways to tour or whether it's looking at an alternative to that touring model was going to be important anyway, and the COVID thing has maybe just brought that forward. And I also think your diversity in terms of your programming doesn't necessarily have to come from visiting companies, because, you know, certainly within Edinburgh, there are people who live, you know, 3 miles out of the city centre who might have some really interesting things to say, who are not getting on the stages. So maybe we're also looking for diversity a little bit more at home, as well as it's still having those international links.
I'm so glad you said that, Verity, because during the last 4 months, I've been thinking about what avenues do I take my own creative desires? And if I'm thinking that, I know there are others, and there are probably many as yet unfound, unsung creative people that haven't even emerged yet. So perhaps, again, thinking positively, optimistically, this is a chance for that emergence to happen, which goes directly into Cy Rawlinson's question. He's a dancer, choreographer based here in the UK. And this is for all three of you. Do you have any more advice for companies or independent artists who are making work now? What would you appreciate, value, or want to see?
I wouldn't put it in very specific way, because anything is possible. Especially in Taipei, almost all the programs, they all acceptable for the Taipei audience. I'm not saying for the rest of the country, but then Taipei audience is very much open-minded. They are willing to take any kind of a program. So as long as it's sincere, really, I think the sincere, honesty work, they always can move people. So I wouldn't really pinpoint any kind of work that might work in here or not. And the situation here in Asia is much better. So we have a better connection around the regions. We have lots of partners already established deep relationships. We're sharing programs, sharing informations. For instance, the West Kowloon in Hong Kong and Australia as well. So in the future, we're gonna create a network that really can share the resource and creativities, and for that is very welcome from any part of the world, the artists to join us.
For me, I think back to human beings. If your work doesn't connection with human beings, with joy or sorrow, doesn't matter, because I think that's very important. You have to share with your audience and to share with the community. So there's no very obvious category I like or I don't like, but I care. It's only your topic or the theme connected with human beings and real life of human beings.
Over to you, Verity.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's important that artists make the work that is coming from their hearts and that they want to make, for sure. So I would agree with that. I mean, I guess practically, I would kind of like to see, I guess, people kind of playing with the sort of hybridity that we've kind of sort of maybe got a bit more used to with the whole COVID situation. So maybe they're making work that has some kind of online element, but also has a live element. I'm really interested in how people have found ways to have a sense of liveness when they've had to kind of sort of put things on a screen. I'm really interested in work that is maybe to small audiences or somehow to socially distanced audiences or to people who are outside or experiencing it without having to sit in a sweaty room, because I think that's formally interesting, and it's also going to be practically useful to us. And Maisie the cat would agree with all of that.
That's good to ask you to
Yeah.
your unexpected collaborator there.
Yeah, she's really productive.
Yeah, we still have some time for any more questions or panelists. If you have any more things that you think we have not yet addressed, now is the time to throw them out into the air.
I have a question for Verity. Do you have any advice to Taiwanese artists if they are interested in touring to abroad?
I mean, right now it sounds like you're probably better off staying in Taiwan. But I guess, I mean, we've been really happy to have all of the Taiwan season artists at Summerhall over the last few years, and it's been really, kind of high quality work, and it's been really nice to see how it's kind of connected with audiences in Edinburgh. So I think there are still hopefully going to be opportunities to do that. And there's a particular kind of work which obviously has been the work that's been successful in international touring in the past, and it's possible that that's going to change. So I would say just to be really kind of sort of conscious and kind of always aware of the situation, and to think about, I guess, those alternative models and ways of connecting with people in the places that you're going to.
I have a question for the three of you, which is, briefly, why is it that you have dedicated your lives to the arts? You don't have to answer it hugely, but I'm just curious, what motivates a person? I mean, I have my reasons as a journalist, as a maker, blah blah blah, but I'm interested in yours. What is it? Why do you stay dedicated to this?
For me, because it's a luxury for me to be able to create different lives throughout the years. So I've been going through like 30 to 40 different lives per year, and then that's something you can't achieve without in any kind of practice, but only in the theaters. Each week you have something new. So it's always different and always a challenge, always adventures, and it gives you the opportunity to travel around the world. So I wouldn't accept any kind of job other than this.
Austin, how many hats do you have?
Probably I would say like 30 something, but then that's a secret.
And how about Verity?
I think for me, it's like I don't know of another job where you see something that is just an idea, like in someone's head, and then it becomes an idea on a piece of paper, and then maybe 1 or 2 years later, it's something that exists on a stage, and people are buying tickets to come and see it. I don't know if there's an equivalent anywhere else, but I haven't really done any other jobs, and the one time I did, I wasn't very good at it, so kind of stick with what I'm reasonably good at, I think.
So that's helping things to come to fruition and to bloom.
Yeah, and just that thing from going for something that's just literally just an idea to being a real thing. I don't know where else you would see that, unless maybe you were like an engineer or something. That would be pretty cool.
Thank you. Huey-mei, what about you?
I think I addicted to see the curtain ups and down. Every time I saw the curtains up, I feel very satisfied with I have done for the audience and the artist. So every time the curtains down, I'm glad because I can go home and have done my job every day. So I quite appreciate I got the chance to work at a theater. Before I got a job, I have no idea about what its production is. So I'm quite lucky. I appreciate that.
Thank you. One more question from, wait, we've got some more coming in. Huey-mei and Austin, what do you feel you've learned from interacting with UK institutions like Summerhall? And Verity, what do you feel you've learned from interacting with performers from Taiwan? Verity, do you want to start?
I mean, I guess, before we started working with, I've not been to Taiwan. It's not a part of the world I know. So I've now seen, several kind of shows from there, and it's kind of, I guess, taught me something about that part of the world and about the country and about the kind of work that is getting made there. And just seeing like the designs for TPAC as well, it's just the kind of sort of scale and ambition of it is really, really interesting, I think, from what's kind of a relatively small country. So I think there's some really interesting there in terms of how like the government is obviously kind of massively valuing and investing in certainly the arts infrastructure. And I've learned little bits about the kind of the history and the politics of the country, which I just from watching shows, which I wouldn't have known otherwise.
And our Taiwanese friends?
There's a book that lists Summerhall as 10 theaters you must see before you die, and I really totally agree with that. And so the first time I visited Summerhall it really blows my mind because you're using lots of non-venues, and then through careful curating and good taste, and it creates such a huge energy throughout the festival. And then that really give me the confidence about how to use in the different spaces in Taipei or even in the future TPACs. I'm confident we can copy that kind of energy with the careful curating and good taste.
Thank you.
Okay. I try to remember how I know about Dance Umbrella in London. Maybe more than 20 years ago, I visited there, and I am impressed by the Dance Umbrella. Actually, I have no idea about contemporary dance long time ago, and we think such a complex, they can help the artists and the audience to know about dance. In Taiwan, the experience is very few. Even I started working at a theater. So after the visit, I really want to do something for contemporary dance in Taiwan. So I think that's very, very special experience for me. Thank you.
I think what you've all been talking about is you gather information and it's inspiring. You gather experience and it inspires you to take what you've gathered and apply it in ways that you can, given your jobs and your locations.
Mm-hmm.
That's international exchange right there. And we've still got a bit of time. Bruno is back, Bruno Hendricks. And what he was concerned about is how this idea about less touring, possibly more local coverage, how with nationalism on the rise in many places around the world, will that possible reduced touring and diversity increase the strength of nationalism? You know, we're moving into obviously quite the arts and politics here, or the arts seen from a political standpoint. Does anybody want to address?
If we are talking about the situation between China and Taiwan, I would say yes, that nationalism really can create a boundary for the arts. But then, other than that, Taiwan is very open to the world. So I don't think nationalism is really happening in the theater.
Okay. Anyone else want to kick that idea around a bit?
Yeah, I feel like certainly so in the UK, and I guess more, it feels like there's more of a aesthetic influence from kind of like sort of companies from the rest of Europe and from kind of further afield, kind of sort of having had the opportunity to show their work in the UK. So I think for UK theatre, certainly the kind of influence of kind of other countries' forms of theatre had a big difference and kind of kicked us slightly out of the like well-made play aesthetic. It feels like maybe the sort of influence of form is maybe sort of more important than the actual kind of subject matter. I don't know. So I feel like that's maybe more of a risk, is that we kind of lose that kind of different aesthetic that you get from kind of watching something that's made from a different sort of theatrical tradition, more than that. I still feel that within a kind of country you can find a diversity of voices to program.
Huey-mei,
In terms of my experience, I don't think the nationalism or the have anything to do with the production. For us, I think we are quite open in Taiwan to accept a different kind of a collaboration. So maybe for me, there's no problem for me, but I think the government, of course, they will have their policy. They want to do something based on their own story and to take care of the local artists. But for myself, I don't have such kind of problem.
You know, this makes me think about, you've used the word risk and Verity and Huey-mei and maybe Austin. I'm just thinking about audiences and risk, and I'm reminded of a performance that I saw which was I can't remember the artist's name, but there was a post-show talk, and an audience member very politely referred to the very high volume of the sound, and the woman who made the piece said, "Do you think I'm here to make you feel comfortable?" Which was part of her confrontational pose or guise. But I'm thinking about, in terms of the audience, risk-taking versus, being comforted. And because I have nothing against entertainment, but then there's, when is entertainment also challenging? And I would be curious how you all feel about that continuum of let's all feel good entertainment versus absolutely controversial risk-taking challenge. And I just want to throw that out to be addressed in this context.
For me, if my festival, Taipei Art Festival, everyone say this is great, everything's great, then I have to worry, because the idea of the festival is pushing the boundary, is leading the city a bit forward. So everything can be a very controversial kind of program. So I'm not really up to the entertainment. Although in the future, maybe half the program we will rent it out for the entertainment sake, but for the program that I'm curating has to be contemporary. It has to address the contemporary issues. It has to be able to have a dialogue with the citizens.
Thank you.
And I think it's possible for for shows to be both of those things at once. So, you know, something can be entertaining maybe and funny, but also like brilliantly done, as well as kind of challenging and kind of pushing people a little bit. So there are lots of ways to kind of, you know, to take pleasure from watching something, which might be quite moving and quite difficult if it's also like, okay, that artist did a really great job of presenting that idea and of making me feel comfortable, and I kind of, you know, felt trusted, you know, and kind of held within that story, then that is also a kind of pleasurable experience.
Huey-mei.
For me, I like argument, especially every time after the show, and the people will talk about how I hate the show or I like it very much. I think if we can bring up the discussion, it's a good thing, and sometimes we can learn from it. So I don't think entertainment is up to your own opinion, because for some people they don't think it's entertainment, but for some they think it's very ridiculous. So I always taught to my colleagues before, we should respect our audience because they pay money to trust you, and when they come back at home, what can we give them? So I think the way we cannot make a judgment on entertainment or not, because we will just try our best to give them what we can do and to share with them. So I don't expect every audience will like my presentation or the performances, but I appreciate they come into the theater and to share the night with us. That's most important than what they think afterwards. So they can, especially now the personal release easily. So on Facebook, you can check up very, very bad comment on our productions, or they have some good comment, but doesn't matter. We can learn from how to work with the audience and the artists afterwards.
I think we can start to wrap up now. But before we go, any last words or last thoughts after I've thanked you for sharing your experience and your insights with us today? But any final words about what it's been like to be here, or any about the topics that we've covered? Any last words from each one of you, please?
Just welcome everyone to 2022. I believe it will open with the three festival together. It will be a grand festival for the new TPAC. So it's going to be great. Welcome, everyone.
Verity?
That's a very positive note to end on, I think. It's been really nice to kind of have this chat and to have the connection, even though the Taiwan season can't come to Edinburgh. So just, yeah, thank you for organizing it, and thank you, Huey-mei and Austin, for kind of taking part, and for everyone who's kind of asked us questions. I think it's been a really nice thing to do, and it's kind of, yeah, helped to make sure that we still have the dialogue, even if we don't have people kind of here in person.
Yes, look forward to work with you in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Especially Donna. Thank you.
Well, we obviously, this is just the beginning of Taiwan season online. It's the next session that you will be at, Huey-mei, and be the keynote speaker, is on. Now, let's see, I'm looking at, no, wait, that was an error there, I think, technical. But we have a session on Friday that we will both be at, looking, as I've mentioned before, which needs to be registered for audience members, multi-community arts education and development, and with 3 guest speakers. And please go online and check if you haven't done so already, because there will be more webinars every week, Wednesdays and Fridays. And on Tuesdays, I am conducting informal interviews with choreographers of the work that was meant to be seen in Edinburgh. So thank you, everybody. Stay safe, be creative, thrive. See you soon.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.